welcome back to 40,000 Layers, where we're going to carry on painting, even though I'm full of anger. And,
Hey, hey, ho, ho. It's time to paint this dough. Um, so
ah!
I. Wait, what happened?
I'm
Did you...
laughing at you and that song.
Oh, okay.
What? What?
I don't know.
Okay.
In my head, there's a really funny meme video of like a sorority in America somewhere, and they have like a recruitment video, and it is literally the stuff of nightmares. There's like three girls, and they're like, "Hey, and welcome to Slapper Kappa Thigh, um, uh, uh, sorority, and you should join us," and blah blah blah. And then they have this big, like, dramatic opening of a door, and there is just layers. All you can see is their heads, but it is layers of these women in this sorority, all chanting and clapping in unison, and it's like the gates of hell get opened and you're just looking into your death and torture for eternity.
Is that. Oh, well, I think other people would get a different feeling from.
No. The
No?
entire internet was like, this is weird and creepy and we all hate it.
Well, you know what? Some people just like demon worship.
Right, that's true. So anyway, the Tau. See what I did there?
They would never do demon worship. They're the goodest. Wink.
Okay. If you
Wink.
want to believe that, that's cool.
I have to
Um,
think that they're nice because otherwise all this painting is for nothing.
but you like the ones who are horrible
I know.
asshats.
So if they're nice, I can hate them.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted to like them though, to
No, not
be
anymore.
contrary to. Okay.
Stupid drone.
So now we know what it takes to make Tash not want to go against the Sheepy way. You know, Sheepy's like, oh, this is a terrible faction. Tash is like, I love it. It's if they're hard to paint, Tash will be like, I
I
don't
think
care.
I think this is a good reason. I feel like lots of people who paint will agree with me. They're a pain in the ass to paint. They're a horrible faction.
Well, you are going to hate the Harlequins when we talk about
You know
them.
what? They are not getting painted. So
I should have tried to take a drink just then. I almost choked on my drink. Okay, yeah, not getting painted. Fair enough. Oh,
we're doing anything else that day. Should we talk about the Tau?
so the Tau. Originally, I said we were going to talk about the expansions and the other aliens. I think first we should probably touch on the greater good.
The greater good.
So the greater good is also called I guess it's the Tovar, but it's the Talvar. Um,
Right.
in Tau language, it essentially means good greater, but yeah.
Okay.
It's a mixture of like life philosophy and religion, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been around since the ethereals turned up. That's what they pretty much ran around preaching, you know?
Yeah. Convince everyone.
So yeah. Um it's kind of it encompasses the caste system and is kind of it tries to allow for and encourage the fast progression and advancement of Tau society and the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
It encourages future peaceful existence without violence and all the interfactional death and conflict that happened at the early part of the Tau. Well, the Tau history, I guess, is not even the Empire. Um, Obviously, it was introduced during the whole Civil War thing when they were all fighting each other, and it was the foundation of what unified the Tau Empire.
Yeah.
Essentially, it is. Oh God, what's the it's the essential basis of it is uniting all intelligent species, all species that exist under one banner for the greater good, to stop war and conflict and all of those things. Um, it essentially involves creating the perfect harmony in society so that everyone is happy and no one needs to fight and no one needs to kill and all of that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the reason why this kind of it makes things a bit difficult is because obviously they're expanding their empire and they're fighting everyone.
Yeah, not everyone wants to join the greater good.
But you see, the thing is that you can see the evidence of how happy everyone is, how united the Tau is compared to all of the other races.
You know what that is?
What's that?
Mind control.
I mean, yes, it very much may be mind control, but you can see the point of view from the Tau, which is basically like we are pursuing the greater good for all, no one above anyone else aside from the ethereals maybe, but above no one else. which means that we should pursue it for all of the intelligent races, for humanity, for the Eldar, for maybe the Necrons, who knows? Let's not talk about Chaos.
Ooh,
Tyranids are
you be
difficult, let's leave
careful.
them out of it too. Maybe the Orcs, but they're kind of difficult. We don't really like the Orcs, but, just everyone in general.
Wow, they have a few exceptions there. There's more than...
You have to have quite a lot of caveats with 40k, because what do you do with Chaos?
Love it.
Do you absorb that?
Well...
And then you got the Tyranids. Technically speaking, there's intelligence in the Tyranid race, but you got to find it, and it's kind of hard to absorb, like, a hive mind into your greater good.
And they might eat you during
They might
the
eat
process.
you. But then again, that's the same with the orcs. Like, they might eat you.
Do they eat people?
Orcs eat everyone, yeah.
Oh. This is a stunning turn of events.
You did I not cover that?
Tell me that they eat people. Tell me that they eat other orcs and Gretchen and stuff.
Oh yeah, the orcs pretty much eat anything. Like they tend towards their squigs and like basic foodstuffs, but they'll give something a munch if they're curious. They'll be like, "Oh, wonder what Ubies taste like." Yeah.
Wow. You know what? That's terrible. Orcs need to go in the bin now.
What, really?
No. We probably taste rubbish though. Don't eat humans.
Yeah, there's a very sometimes. Okay, so we're gonna get a very might. We're gonna get a very quickly. We're gonna get a very might political, and a tiny bit like historical.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I wonder if the Tau is Games Workshop being self-critical, a little bit of a nod and a criticism towards the old British Empire.
Yeah.
Because one of the bases of the British Empire was very much the idea of, we have democracy, we have parliament, we have laws, we have systems built in our governments. Now let's go out there and give them to everyone else.
That's what I was thinking of when you were talking about bringing all the
which is why I feel like it's worth touching on, because it's very similar. Um, not to get super political or super, whatever, like analytical of past events and history and whatnot, but there was a case of that. And as we all know, with the British Empire, it basically boiled down to, they're like sitting over a big map and they're like, who should we give democracy and parliament to and like law and order to this week? And they're like, over in this country over here, we did find quite a lot of nice oil. And it's like,
Oh,
clearly they need our laws and governments. Let's go
clearly.
help them. And while we're giving it to them, we can just, kind of separate the land so that all of that oil just happens to fall under bits that we take. Just,
Mysterious.
So like that's how I read into the Tau as well, is like they have a high goal, a high brow, and like lofty goal of bringing people enlightenment and all that kind of bullshit, basically. um, but I feel like there's a slightly superior and not evil necessarily, but just other reasons for them to be doing it. So
Yeah, I mean, we've been suspicious of the ethereals this whole time. I just got more white everywhere. This whole time, and yeah, that makes sense to me. Like they are directly benefiting to share their greater good. Even like, I don't know, if people don't want the greater good, leave them alone.
yeah, so just
They want to
stop
be
coming around here.
miserable.
Stop
Imagine
coming around here selling us your greater good, motherfuckers. We want to be sad. We want to be angry. We want to drop drones and swear at them.
Yeah. It's very
Fucking
important that
drones.
you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Anyway, sorry, we went off on a
things.
massive diatribe. So for the greater good, it encourages the expansion. It encourages the absorption of other races and cultures. It could be a massive problem for the Tau because they have to maintain order. And starting off, especially, they ran into a lot of races who were quite primitive and saw them as deities, or essentially a race of ultra intelligent hyper species who's just like come to save them from their own bullshit. As time goes on, obviously that can change, and if there is indeed a very mind control-y nature, it's not gonna work. It's not necessarily gonna work as well on other races.
Yeah.
However, for now, it appears to be going okay. There were a lot of Imperium who were, Imperial planets and Imperial Guard regiments, etc., stranded while the whole thing was happening, the warp storming, etc., was happening, who joined the Tau. There are a lot of Imperial forces, who have just surrendered to the Tau when the Tau look like they're winning, or even when they turn up. It's kind of like the idea of the greater good is can be appealing to them, it's not quite as. Sorry, someone posted up Rebutio Gilliman. Sorry, Sabutio Gilliman. I'll just send that over to you so you can see. That made me laugh. Yay, Sabutio Gilliman's the thing. Thank you. So
Where are you? So you're sending me it?
yeah. I'm sending. It's just
Went all the way up to Discord. It's still there.
Discord wouldn't let me send the copy. I had to like capture it and send it your way. So there it is.
Oh, okay.
It's quite glorious.
I like his sword.
Yeah. So the humans who joined the Tau Empire are called the Guevesa.
Guevesa.
It's like their name for it, and well, I feel like we should talk about the expansion before we talk about the aliens.
Yeah.
So essentially, the only other thing you have to know is that, and it's probably easy to assume, the Imperium itself kind of fucking hates Guevesa. Like any humans who leave the Imperium and join the Tau, they're like fucking ultra heretics.
Yeah.
And traitors, which is even worse because well, might not be even worse, but it's pretty bad.
Double worse. There's two whole
Double
things.
worse. Both together is definitely double worse.
You can be a traitor or you can be a heretic, but you cannot be a heretic traitor. It's illegal.
No. Legal.
It's a crime.
So yeah, it essentially that's the kind of the greater good aspect of things. It's memed on a lot. Because obviously, the tower called space commies and all that type of stuff. I still see it as a lot more imperial, like the Tau Empire.
Yeah, I think it's very British Empire.
It feels like one of those things where you have like this slow stumbling like old war machine of an empire, and then a new fast like cool, it's hip with the kids empire kind of like pops out and is like, yeah, let's go, like we're cool, we can relate to the kids, and then people go off and join it, and the old ones like, no,
we don't like them anyway.
It feels a bit like a hermit crab, like it pops up and takes over the old empire and lives there, kind of thing. So I have a feeling that if the Tau actually succeed massively and start doing lots of expanding and going really well, I have a feeling like we'll eventually see the birth of the new Imperium, except for it's the Tau Empire Imperium thing. So
I do think it's got like just wanting everyone to be in harmony and not fight. That doesn't seem like. What do you do then?
Yeah, it's kind of creepy, right?
What do you, like, it's too nice. What do you do when you've achieved it? Like,
it's
what's
just
the
too
goal?
Creepy. Yeah. Or the other possibility, of course, is them knowing a god who wants to be birthed into existence, and that's another possibility.
But Zinch is like, it's all right. I know what's going on here. We'll leave him to it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. If you're living in a universe or a galaxy with Zinch, the other answer, of course, is literally that it's just all in Zinch's plan.
It's because he plans a lot.
He does plan a lot. It's true.
Can you hear me like that? Is it okay? Yeah.
It's a little bit muffled.
It's because I was not looking. Directional microphones.
Did you turn away from the microphone and say, "Can you hear me"?
No, it was when before that.
Okay.
But sometimes, especially when I'm painting, I tend to mumble, and then I'm like, wait, I don't even know if anyone heard me speaking. It's fine.
Fair enough.
Because it's like I can't move too much.
So let's bounce into the spheres, the expansions of the Tau Empire, which I'm getting very confused by, because now it's saying that there are 3 different phases of the expansions called the spheres of expansion. So I'm like, Wait, I thought there were five. You said there were five. I said there was three. I got made fun of for saying there were three, and now there's five. Whatever. Okay. So there are so there are three expansions apparently.
Are
When I
you
said there were
sure?
five, no, I have no idea anymore.
There were a number of expansions.
It's it's possible that I think it's possible there's a see this is why is because I don't know the tower as well. I'm less confident in saying these things where I'm like there are two, there are three, there are five. I don't know. Maybe it's possible that there's three. Um,
Probably doesn't help when I mock you, does it? Oh, sorry, I'm painting out of the camera too. Oopsie daisy.
okay. So apparently there are three big ones, which are the important ones. They are essentially a big explosion outwards where they colonize, they war, they take over, uh, usually predated by exploratory missions to find out where to go, what will be needed, um, and then followed up by a military campaign to gain as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then once all of the planets that are taken over, the colonies are formed, all of these type of things, that's when they transform them all into stable jumping on off points for the next expansion.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of, but not quite, but kind of leapfrogging in expansions.
Yeah, making a forward base and then going to the next bit.
Yeah.
Very sensible.
I believe the first sphere expansion lasted about 1,000 years.
Yeah, I was about to say, haven't they only been around for like 6,000?
Well, so they
Yeah.
they turned up. The first like vision of them was like 6,000 years ago, and then
Yeah.
they popped up. I think a few hundred years later, being like super technologically advanced.
Quick.
Which kind of makes sense, you know. If we look at the human history, like imagine that when you know let's go for like 1,000 years ago, so kind of around about the time William the Conqueror like ran into Britain into England and was like, yo, what's up, I like this, I'll have it, please. Around that time, imagine that beings came forward and united the entirety of humanity.
Yeah.
And from that point on, 1,000 years ago, we all had no conflict.
Advancement
And
goes
just,
quick once you've got
yes.
organized.
Let's not even forget that we had a significant period called the Dark Ages where no advancement was achieved at all.
Yeah.
So,
So.
imagine where we could be now. Um, but yeah, so it makes sense that a couple hundred years, maybe or so, like they'd come leaps and bounds. Especially if there's some sinister thing behind it with like maybe advanced technology or mind control or whatever. Um, so I can send over a image if you want to throw it up.
Nope.
I'll send it over anyway, just in case. Of the Tau Empire at not current date, but close to current date, essentially, with all of the expansions.
Okay.
So that they kind of like claim an area and kind of like establish it and then push out again, and they kind of like form these like subsets areas where it's like It's kind of similar to the Roman Empire, I guess. You know,
Hmm.
they kind of they form a governance area, kind of how it seems. Um,
Whew.
so
Yeah.
yeah, the star systems become called septs, and they kind of like incorporate colonized planets or moons in the same system, and then all the other stuff there. And then communication arrays and sensors, all kind of like linking back to the core of the Tau Empire, so it can all be ran very very fluidly by the watercast and etc.
Keep organized.
Yeah.
What travel systems do they have to go quite so far?
Wait, so
Sorry.
you want to know about?
Wait, so how do they get like
Okay, give me a second. I have this.
That was an
I was
aside.
I wasn't expecting the question. Well, I mean, I was, but I don't have this like
Easily to
straight up
hand.
ready to be. Where is the technology of the towel?
Don't know. Where is it?
So I think they've developed a faster than light uh space travel that doesn't need to use the warp.
Oh.
But I'm not confident on that because I don't know that much about the towel. So it's possible they still do use the warp.
Hmm. Well, if
It's
they
here somewhere, I know.
don't, Captain Imperium's gonna want that.
Captain Imperium. You mean the Emperor?
Well, he's having a nap, so he's not bothered. Um,
I mean, he might be having a nap, or he might be preparing to. You know what
having
would
a
be
nap.
really, you know what would be really funny is that the Chaos God, the Tower, tried secretly trying to awake that we don't know about. Is actually the Emperor.
Well, I mean, yeah, they are trying to awake it, so hey, he needs to wake up. And he was secretly a Necron all along.
So apparently,
Mhm.
from what I can read, the Tau did have they started off with a kind of fast and light travel, but then that may have been retconned away,
Aw.
and essentially the density of stars around them means that they can travel reasonably quickly between systems. So it's very possible that they're just kind of slow traveling, but they kind of jump around the systems, and uh the problem would be is it'll take like a year, 2 years to travel between systems for them, whereas the Imperials can essentially just warp in, warp out.
Well, if they allowed psychers, then
Yeah,
this would go much quicker.
I think it's one of those things that Games Workshop have probably said to themselves, we need to figure this out and fix it, but they haven't got around to it yet. So
Yeah, it's like, well, we'll deal with that later. No one likes their Tau anyway.
I would say for now, unless it has been fixed, or they have talked on it. I can't really. Maybe that's why I didn't really have much on in the ways of technology, faster than light travel technology. But Maybe that's why the Tau is expanding how it is at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if they had really good travel as well as being pretty badass, then it would be rough for everybody else in the
Yeah,
system. So they have to have some negatives.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, so essentially, they haven't like massively exploded, but they're making very solid expansion, taking over worlds, convincing worlds to join them, all that type of thing. And I would assume that there are aspects of the Tau Empire that have warp travel and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's probably some. Um, the first Tau expansion, I think, took over 8 like section septs. Um, yeah, like there's one called Town, uh, a chain of enormous orbital docks and controls the largest of the aircar space stations. Got a whole load of fleets and all that type of thing. There's Dianoi, which is named after the twin moons of the prime world. Like they have one world which is like the set world, and then others like containing it.
Yeah.
Um, and it's been invaded by the orcs a lot. So
Oh,
yeah.
why? Well, the orcs just want to fight, don't they? Ugh.
Oh yeah, always.
Get my
Um,
muscles squished.
Also, I guess they learn as they go. Seems like they've been increasing their technology, better propulsion, that type of thing. Um, so that yeah, essentially, during the second expansion sphere, very similar thing. They took over more worlds. They formed new septs, new like kind of let's call them governance areas.
Mm-hmm.
One of which was a sept established by Commander Farsight.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe the second expansion where they first encountered the Tyranids as well.
Oh dear.
High Fleet Gorgon.
They're like, you want to join us
For the greater
for the greater
good.
good?
The third sphere of expansion was run by a commander called Commander Shadowsun, who was placed in command of it and secured personally, I think, like 2 of the new septs.
Ooh.
Um, I think this was the one that really came into conflict with the Imperium properly because Space Marines were like, you know, um,
We
and
wanted
pretty
the
much,
planet.
yeah, pretty much put a stop to it, to the expansion. They, I think before then there had been, battles and all that type of thing, but there hadn't been a proper full-on imperial resistance to it.
Mm,
And maybe they just they got a bit too close to the hornet's nest.
yeah.
But
Like, you can't
yeah,
have this. That's not all right. We left you alone when you were just, absorbing Xenos.
one of the things that probably didn't help was that during the time of the third expansion, the third sphere expansion, there was a little thing called the 13th Black Crusade,
Uh,
which was another Black Crusade run by Abaddon.
yeah, right?
Um, have we gone into what happened to Cadia at all?
Oh, we have spoken about Cadia.
Yeah, that was Abaddon.
Yeah.
Um, it's a whole big thing. It's made things a lot more difficult and a lot more interesting for everyone.
Mm.
So we'll speak about that properly soon. But Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
whole big thing. Very distracting for the Imperials. Um, so that resulted in the withdrawal of significant forces from dealing with the Tau, which let them kind of expand a little bit more.
Yeah. Sorry,
And
fiddlies.
oh no, you're good.
Whew.
Uh, Essentially, the Imperials kind of brought a halt to it with an assassination. The assassination of one of the Ethereal Supremes. Yeah.
Can't be doing that. Mind control end.
Well, I mean, there are other Ethereals, and that's um, and that's kind of where the Tower now is, in a state of not pause, but they're not doing a big expansion currently. They're dealing with a few issues internally. Farsight is a bit of a problem. As I remember, Shadow Sun despises Farsight, so maybe going after him.
Hmm. You haven't told me much about him.
Farsight,
Mm-hmm.
he's a good boy.
Is it a good boy or is it like is that a lie?
He's no, he's a good boy. Um, so maybe in the future we'll go into the expansions and all of the things that happened during it. I don't think we need to right now.
No, they're just expanding.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that happened in there, and some interesting fights, and characters and all that type of thing. We'll definitely talk about Commander Farsight. I think probably for the final part.
Okay.
For now, I don't really feel like we need to talk about the Guavessa, because they're just essentially humans
Traitors.
in the Tau Empire. Um, they're not super highly regarded.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best they can kind of expect in the military, at least, is kind of to get like a sergeant position.
Yeah, well, they're not going to be like physically as good as
As
the
the father,
Tau. I nearly called them the Eldar. My brain's like as the Tau.
Ooh.
So they're not going to be as needed, are they? Bugger him. Just to spite the Emperor. That's what it is.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Kroot.
The Kroot. Yay.
So here's a little quote from a watercast Tau envoy. They are fierce indeed, these Kroot, and savage. I look upon them and tremble at their ferocity. I can only hope that when the enemy sees them, they tremble as I do. So Kroot are basically chickens.
Mm-hmm.
If chickens had semi-primitive but technologically advanced weapons, they're very savage. They were evolved from birds on their homeworld, and they like. Have you ever heard the term "eat the enemy's heart, gain his strength"?
Yes.
That's kind of what the tower like. I'm gonna send you over sorry, not the tower. That's kind of what the
I
Kroot.
just looked them up.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you a Kroot. There's a Kroot.
Maybe I think their skin made me think of why they're tree people, but they're not.
They do have a kind of dryad vibe to them.
Yeah, that's what
in looks.
So.
But then again, I say they're a chicken, and you look at it and you go, "Oh, okay, yeah,
It's not chicken.
that's a chicken." Um, they're about half a meter taller than humans in
Yeah.
general. Got this kind of like beak, and they've got those like predator hair spikies.
Yep. Love it.
Um, so any enemies they kill, they eat,
Yeah.
and they evolve based on what they eat.
They're the Tau Orcs.
Kind of. They'd actually maybe be a bit closer to Tyranids, weirdly. Obviously,
Mm.
they don't have the hive mind.
What if the oh oh what if the crew are actually partially Tyranids that have been disconnected from their hive mind and now they're in the Tau psychological witchcraftery.
It's a good theory. Um, so
Everyone's like,
the
no, no, Nicole.
I mean, no. Like it's a possibility, but the Tyranid hive minds are like they don't have individuality, so it's hard to say.
What if the Tyrannid, the crew, what the Tyranids turn into, if they eat orcs? And then when they've been fighting orcs in the Tau planet, they're like, oh, I think we'll keep those.
I just want to say anyone can look back at this moment as the time Tash became a full-on 40k nerd.
Like, ooh,
The second you start positing theories and stuff on the lore is like, oh, you're hooked. There's no way out.
no, I think when I made that joke, that the Warhammer joke when I was a little bit drunk and I thought it was
Mm.
hilarious. I think that was the moment.
Oh, yeah, that was probably the moment. That's
And I was
true.
like, oh no.
We'll have a joke.
It was a good
Um,
joke.
it was a good joke, but essentially
Sorry.
the
Carry
crew can consume DNA genetics and adapt themselves, like reshape themselves based on what they consume. Their leaders are called shapers, and they are basically their job is to pick out um, desirable traits in enemies
Oh god.
and basically guide the rest of their clan to eat and reshape themselves.
Cool. I like the crew.
Yeah, no, I figured you would. Um, for instance, if this crew clan wants to get stronger, like bigger, bulkier muscles, they go and have a fight against the orcs and then eat them.
This is what I said.
However, if they're having if they're needing a like height advantage, they can just go and eat things that fly with wings and stuff, and eventually they grow wings,
Okay.
which also goes along with their religious beliefs.
Um
They believe that when a warrior of any race dies, the spirit of the warrior, should be kept, and the only way to do this is to eat their flesh.
hmm.
So they do this with when they need to bury their fellow warriors, their own people. They'll bury them in themselves first, and then the rest of it they'll just kind of
Hmm. Yum. Yeah. I mean, they can't have been the best warrior if they died, can they?
well, no, but it's they're still a warrior, and they're still their spirit needs to live on.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things, aside from the physical adaptations they make, is if they extensively hunt and feed on a particular race or species, they tend to start to resemble them a little bit.
Yeah.
So, for example, there are some Kroot clans that fight with and consume Drukhari extensively.
Hmm.
And they start becoming very cunning, very sly, and absolute assholes.
Oh no.
I don't know whether they make people chairs and tables, but probably.
Maybe. Potentially. Ah, there is.
Occasionally, it can be dangerous because they'll hit like an evolutionary dead end, or they'll acquire characteristics they don't really want, like
Yeah.
Tyranids.
What's wrong with the Tyranids, bro?
Well, the Tyranids are a hive mind.
Yeah, okay, true.
You know, it's not a trait you really want to absorb. And
Um,
plus, most likely, my guess would be is if the crew eat Tyranids, they might risk becoming part of the hive mind,
ooh.
which could be weird and dangerous and bad.
They're not allowed to do that. They'll get in trouble.
One of the fun things about the Kroot and their homeworld, especially, is that a lot of the animals are also Kroots.
Oh, so little birds. Just big old
Well,
birds.
so there are Kroot hounds,
Yes. I've seen those.
which, yeah, Kroot hounds are really cool. Um, which are essentially dogs, hunting dogs, that kind of very canine, very good at hunting, and they're actually part of the Kroot species that just went down the wrong consumption route, basically.
They had too many hot dogs.
Yes, which I think is great. It means a lot of their animals are just their species, but they evolved wrong.
Mm, that's cool.
There's the Krutox. They're basically like quite large gorilla type lizards things. Again, I think the Krutox are Kroot who went too far down like a big gorilla type consumption route.
Yeah.
Um, which essentially turned them into big lumbering idiots. And then they went, wild, and they were no longer kind of sentient. Essentially, like a new species.
Yeah.
Um, and there's uh, others like really big, almost like dinosaur like things, and flying hawks and all those type of thing. There is the hawk one is like I think it's called a crew hawk, and I think it's always been sacred to the Kroot, and the assumption is that it's sacred because that's what they evolved from, maybe.
Oh.
Like us and simians.
It's like their true form is the bird.
Yeah.
Ah,
No, I mean their true form is just the chicken, but you
it
know.
is what it is now.
So the Kroot themselves are often mercenaries so that they can travel and gather genetic material,
Yeah.
and like evolve themselves stronger and better, and all that type of thing. um they have, like, you can actually, technically speaking, have Kroot in the Imperium.
They're not.
Wouldn't be for long, and it probably wouldn't be talked about much, but it's possible.
I think I know of them because I think that were they in the Rogue Trader book?
It is possible to play a Kroot in Rogue Trader, yes.
That's why, because I was like, oh, they're cool.
They
And
are
then
cool.
I think I was told no. No, you cannot be a crew.
You don't want to make it even more complicated and have to learn more rules.
Oh god, yeah.
They do also have they have a ship which is called like a war sphere, which is basically a big ball bearing in the shape of a ship.
Right. How
Yeah,
does
that
that
that's
work? Come on, tell
The
me the science of
um
this.
so they have rifles
Yeah.
which it almost looks like a spear. Uh it used to fire like a slug. Like a
Yeah.
metal slug, not an actual slug. With 40k, you never know.
You never know. No, I
Um,
assumed you meant like a bullet slug.
they have been changed to fire like charged particles instead, like similar to the Tau's weaponry.
Mm-hmm.
But very often they're just used to hit people with. So
Yeah.
they have like blades on the end on the ends and things like that. So
So they can whack them.
in terms of like technology, aside from their own guns, they mostly just loot shit.
Yeah.
Because they adapt so well, you can find Scroot with you can find Kroot with like orc weapons even.
I am definitely getting more orc vibes than anything else.
Yeah, they got some orc vibes to them. Uh, but especially ones that eat orcs,
Yeah.
particularly. Yeah, that's the Kroot are a decent part of the Tau Empire. Like they're in there, they're involved. They're mercenaries, but they also are like there's big sections of Kroot that are part of the. I think the Kroot homeworld is now part of the Tau Empire. Even
Do they get paid in snacks or
um probably yeah.
what is their money? What is their industry? Tell me about the crew.
So they're tribal. They're fairly savage. They don't really they do trade and they do all those things, but it's yeah, I think a lot of their society and culture is geared towards going out, exploring, fighting, and finding new ways to evolve.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because they have the examples of failure to evolve on their planet,
Okay.
like all those other animals are all just Kroot who fucked up.
Yeah, so they want to do better.
Yeah.
Okay.
So another alien race, part of the Tau Empire,
Mm-hmm.
are the Vespid.
Right. What do they do?
They are insectoids. They're kind of creepy.
Kind of creepy. Okay.
They're kind of like a mix of ant and fly and maybe spider.
Let's have a look at these. Ugh. I
Hmm.
don't like that.
Yeah, no, I don't, that's fair. Um, but when the Tau found the Vespids, they were like, "But the greater good, though."
But the greater good, they're not very picky, are they?
The Vespid have crystal based technology,
Right, cool. Why is that
which I'm
cool?
uh I'm trying to find that out now. So they had when the Tau found them, they had kind of like semi united on the planet, and they had advanced their technology in a lot of ways, but they couldn't go into space.
Yeah. Okay.
The watercast Tau like turned up and like were like, "Hey, what's up?" But they couldn't communicate with them.
Hmm. Because they've no common language. Have we not made
Well,
communicators yet?
it wasn't really the language; it was the mindset. Like they just couldn't understand each other because the way they thought, the way they acted, and everything was so different to each other.
Okay.
For example, the Vespids didn't even really understand that the Tau was sentient.
But they flew there, kind of.
Well, yeah, sure, but it would be the equivalent of like it'd be the equivalent of like an octopus like crawling out of the sea and then waving at you,
Oh,
and you're like, that's fucking weird.
yes.
And then it like offers you a shell in exchange for like a shoe, and you're like, okay,
I
here you
guess
go.
if you want a shoe.
They traded the crystals a little bit, um, but there really was no like, hey, come and join us.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, this kind of got kicked back up to the ethereals because the crystals were really cool. That the basis of the Vespid technology, and they were like, we could really like these crystals are interesting.
We could really use
Um,
these for the greater good.
so what the ethereals did is they kind of designed and ordered to construct a interface device
Uh-huh.
which essentially would like forge a connection between the Tau species and the Vespids.
Like how?
Who knows?
I don't like that.
When when they brought the device to the Vespids and fitted them, no, so the Vespids are the ones that get fit with this like head device, right?
Oh, poor Vespids.
The Vespids suddenly were like, "Oh, okay, so you're in existence like us, like you are sentient like us." Not only that, but they understood the concept of the greater good and the fact that they would have a place in the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
So they went round and gave like hierarchically the top Vespids these communion helms that helped them communicate with each other. Now the tower are able to communicate with the leaders of the Vespids, and the greater good is kind of like trickled down to all the ones that are under the leaders,
Yeah.
and they now are starting to understand the greater good and all that type of thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Like, it really is does be one of those things. Um
Very suspicious. Whew.
it doesn't help that they had a resource that was of real interest to the Tau.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's quite like the Tau setup, isn't it? Where they have the maybe mind control, maybe not mind control, and if one of them dies, like you said, they
Yeah.
go uncontrolled. Ugh.
So yeah, yeah. There's a
A lot of question marks for the Tau on
yeah.
their what is this goodness scale?
Oh, for sure.
Hmm.
Um. So yeah. The Vespid are on a gas giant. Um.
Hanging out.
It's a little weird that the Vespid can live on it, but there's lots of like floating rock islands, very very barren and everything, but they essentially live in there. They like claw out with they've got these claws which are like super like any miner would love to have these claws. They could like hollow out these big floating rocks and use them like hives.
Yeah.
Um,
Creepy.
and the lower levels of of this gas giant like atmosphere layer, there's lots of like really weird exotic crystals,
Cool crystals.
which only some of the Vespids can go and grab.
Hmm.
The crystals are the basis of the technology for the Vespids. Um, one of which is used to make the neutron blaster.
Oh, that sounds
Something
powerful.
something only the Vespids really use, and it's essentially like I think they used a different weapon to begin with, but then the Tau helped them develop it a bit further.
Hmm.
Essentially, uh, there at the front of the barrel is a crystal, like it's slotted into the weapon and used as like a focus.
Right. Okay.
And it it pretty much like so they with the Tau's help, the Earthcast, I guess technically,
Heck yeah.
um, they have managed to develop a containment for the crystal, to like energize it and then project it.
That sounds very
It
dangerous.
essentially fires neutron radiation that passes through essentially anything that isn't uh like armored specifically to protect against the kind of like radiation. It needs to be rad shielded
So a
essentially.
nice little OP gun then.
It's pretty OP, but the Vespids aren't like super
Common.
all over the place, like super common. They're pretty cool though. They're pretty badass, and yeah, it's you could see why the Tau would be interested in
Yes,
those
well,
technology.
their oil supply.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the Vespid, very possibly mind controlled. We're not sure.
Yep, mind control.
Uh, there's also the Nikasol
What?
or Nikasol.
Okay, what did they do?
They're psychers.
Those
Um,
are elite. They're not legal.
they're not legal. There's not as many in the Tau Empire and etc. Um, they are travelers. From what I know, I don't think they actually have a home planet, or they at least I don't think they know what their home planet is. At some point, they just started traveling in ship in big ships.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, they essentially don't settle down. They have a tendency to like they're good at like essentially hibernating. So they can spend ages and ages in hibernation. So they essentially built a crap ton of ships, jumped on the ships, and while they travel, they hibernate, and then they get to a place and they wake up and they go and do things. Um, the first time that the Tau encountered the Nikasar, um, it was when like one of their sets of ships, like flotillas, just essentially like wandered into view, like just drifting through space. They'd been in space for a couple of centuries, and they were just like,
Chilling out, having a little trip.
um, they essentially work as the Tau scouts and explorers.
Yeah.
So they tend to be the ones who find interesting planets to colonize, and they probably found the freaking Vespid homeworld, to be honest.
Oh,
Yeah.
just they're not helping other species.
One thing the Nixar what will often happen with the Nixars is the Tau who have better like space travel will gravity hook them and drag them through until they get to a system, drop them off, and let them slowly drift around the system, finding whatever they can and reporting back.
Just have a little wander about.
Yeah.
We'll come back for you in 5 years. Oh dear.
Uh,
I'm
so
getting
originally they were a lot less technologically advanced, especially in terms of like fighting weaponry.
Yeah,
But the Tau gave them some
of course they
guns and
did.
stuff. So
Weaponize them again.
so yeah. Then we have the Demiurge.
Demiurge.
The Demiurge are the closest in quite a long time that the 40k universe has got to dwarves.
Ah, okay.
So there's a bit of a backstory on this. Essentially, way back in the beginning of time, when Games Workshop created 40,000, Warhammer 40,000,
Uh-huh.
there were the squats.
Yeah.
The squats were space dwarves.
Yeah.
And then they weren't.
And then they were not.
There's a whole big thing on the squats. We'll talk about it one day, maybe.
One day.
Basically, when the squats were no longer the squats, they basically got taken out as an army, as a thing that existed pretty much in 40k. They in the lore they still existed, but they're mostly ignored and they don't exist really anymore, aside from a little bit.
Were a lot of people angry about that?
Yeah, actually, the reason that they got taken out was because Games Workshop was embarrassed as to how they did dwarves in space.
Oh, okay. Right.
They were they were literally just dwarves in space. There was no difference between fancy dwarves and the squats, really. Whereas with the Eldar, you can look at them and go, wow, yeah, those guys are different. Like, they're obviously elves,
Yeah.
but they've been advanced. They're different. They're interesting. They have their own thing. The squats never really became their own thing. The weird thing is, they were actually pretty popular when they got discontinued. It was more Games Workshop wanting to do it better and then never getting around to it.
Yeah.
Or essentially, like,
there's so much, though, isn't there?
yeah, it's essentially the window passed.
Yeah.
And so the Demiurge kind of rose up a little bit. They're kind of a thing now in 40k. They're short humanoid traders and miners.
Yeah.
they like to construct stuff that, but they look a lot more feral. They're a bit more doggy in terms of like looks and stuff.
That's strange. Like dog.
They work with the Tau. There's not a whole load known about them because they don't turn up super load.
Yeah, if they're trying to not use them, then
yeah.
Let's
I mean,
not talk
they're
about
not
it.
they're not the squat, but they have a lot of similarities. They're very dwarfy. And yeah, they're kind of cool. I'd like to see some more of them, but who knows? We'll see. There's additionally like there's quite a few. There's like the Torellians. They're kind of like crocodile dogs.
Wait, I think I've definitely seen the Kroot dogs, but every time I pick models and stuff, I'm like, oh, I'm not allowed dogs. Because I just always pick the hounds.
You do have a tendency to go with the Hounds,
I'm like,
but then
oh,
again, you also wanted the Eldar. Oh God, there's like a cat. It's like a Sphinx cat type thing.
the one with your need.
Yeah, you need. Thank you.
See, I can tell you because she
Um,
had a cat.
yes. That's, there's the Galg, who are space octopi.
Those sound
They're
cool.
really creepy.
Yeah, hang out with them
They got
sometime.
like eye stalks and they're all blobby and then tentacles. It's like typical. Like this is why the Tau get fucking memed on for being weeby hentai machines, is because they befriend races that are literally tentacle blobs. Like Jesus. There's the Geatrix. Uh, Not much known about them. This is and essentially this is one of the problems with the Tau currently
Mm-hmm.
is they have a lot of really cool potential, but it hasn't been expanded yet.
Yeah, there's like so many races.
Like the
Um,
crew are really cool and they've been expanded decently. Hopefully, with the next Tau things, they'll expand the alien like details, like all these the Terrellians, the Geotrix, and etc.
does seem a shame. But like I do understand this with there being so much and so many years and everything. Like how do you keep everything up to date and balanced and
Yeah, I mean, it's
interesting and
impossible.
different? So
Like the Space Marines Imperium have been around for you know since the early 90s.
mhm. My
So
wrist is popping out socket, so I'm going to stop painting now.
yes, no, I was gonna say this is a good point to stop because when we come back for the next part, it'll be Commander Farsight. We'll go into them and the
Yeah.
Farsight enclaves.
So we will see you next time.
Yeah.